You're listening to Politics Unspun with me, Jack McCluskey.
And me, Charlie Carter.
We're two economists discussing the hottest political debates.
Like, do tax cuts really boost economic growth?
How high should the minimum wage be?
Is Scotland ready for independence?
Should post-work pints be free?
Yes. And because there's nothing we love more than the sound of our own voices, we're putting our future career prospects on the line to share our thoughts on each one of these deliciously controversial topics.
We hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome to our introductory episode. Feel free to skip to the good stuff. We've done the service of highlighting our favourite episodes. But today, we're just telling you a little more about ourselves and why we thought the world needed yet another podcast. So without further ado, let me introduce my close friend and now colleague, Charlie Carter.
Hello everyone, lovely to be here. I'm looking forward to this, it's going to be fun.
So Charlie, would you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit more about you.
Absolutely, Jack. I'd be more than happy to talk about myself. It's quite literally my favourite topic. But yeah, so I'm an economics PhD student at the University of Bath. And obviously I met Jack quite a few years ago, back in first year, didn't we? First year on a night out, I think. And here we are, quite a few years later, talking politics, talking economics, you know? Good fun. Yeah.
I'll tell you, listeners, the first time I met Charlie, I thought he looked really, really cool, you know, but it turned out he was just really grumpy that day, so that tells you.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't forget what it was grumpy about, but I think that's pretty much just my standard emotional state, just looking mildly pissed off.
Well, like Charlie, I also graduated from the great institution that is the University of Bath with a degree in economics. Where we differ is that my PhD is focused on transport economics, policy and finance. And part of that entails enrolling in the Chartered Financial Analyst program, which makes me as interesting in social situation as staring at a blank wall.
I've literally fallen asleep already, Jack.
Yeah,
I
can
literally
tell
haven't been listening
I tried to cut that short.
How long's this episode been? 15 minutes.
I think we said we would go into a little more detail. So, Charlie, why did you pick economics? Why did you want to do a PhD? And we're all eager to know, what's it about?
Yeah, so I picked a PhD in economics basically because I did my placement year in my undergrad in a very corporate environment. I worked as a research analyst for the Walt Disney Company, which is very fun, but it wasn't fun. I hated it. I hated every second of it, apart from the people I worked with. But yeah, the actual job itself was very, very dull to me. I found the work pretty uninteresting. And I've always been massively interested in politics, really interested in policy and how we can improve the lives of people. And I really felt like that was my, going to hit you with the P word, passion. My real passion. See? Podcast and passion. Yeah, so did I a little bit. But yeah, so I essentially found my real interest in policy, and a lot of the work I want to be able to do basically requires a PhD. So I thought I'd get it out of the way now when I have no responsibilities, I'm still a child, get it out of the way so I don't have to come back to it and revisit it when I'm 40 years old.
Fantastic. Well, you've got your chance then, Charlie. Why don't you talk directly to your employers now and plead to them to hire you?
Please.
I've got a PhD, sir.
Yeah, exactly. So my PhD basically works on the relationship between wages and labour markets and job search behaviour. So in my first work, I basically investigate the relationship between how much NHS workers are being paid and how long it takes for NHS hospitals to fill vacancies. And basically what we show is that by paying workers higher wages, we're essentially getting reduction in labour shortages and reduction in job vacancy durations, which helps reduce the cost of agency staff, improve health outcomes, blah, 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 blah. But basically provides evidence that paying NHS workers is generally a positive thing. In my second chapter and beyond, I'm sort of working more with the relationship between wages, risk aversion, job mobility, and personality. And I'm doing this in a little bit more of a theoretical simulation framework, which is quite interesting. And then I also work with the Institute of Policy Research, with a think tank at Bath, on innovation and productivity in the UK and what factors affect that. What about you, Jack? What's your main area if we're going into a little bit more detail?
Yeah, I just want to start by saying that I actually helped Charlie get that job with the IPR, and I have seen no commission that I was promised. He said that I would get 10%, but yes. So my research investigates the extra financial cost and risk associated with bus electrification. That blank wall sounds pretty good now, doesn't it? No, I'll tell you why it is interesting. People are aware of...
do.
I'm getting there. I'll do it quickly. People are aware of the barriers to adopting electric cars. They have low range and long charging times. But this is especially problematic for bus fleets, which have to service a regular timetable. When you also include electricity prices that depend on the time of day and battery degradation that depends on your charging schedule, things can get very complex. What I've done is develop a methodology to include all of these considerations, and my results have serious implications for UK procurement policy. You might not know this, but at the time of recording, the UK government provides grants of up to 75% of the price difference between diesel and electric buses. My analysis shows the cases where that's too high, and those scenarios where it's not enough. Right.
So you're a nerd.
Nerd.
You're a geek. Nerd.
Now that we know a bit more about us, I'm going to pass it over to Charlie to explain why we're making this podcast.
Well, because I'm in crippling debt. I've got some bills
And
I've got to
this
pay
is
to
gonna
some bad people. I've got some bills I've got to pay. So I've got to work every day. What about you?
Is that your answer? Is that the best you've got? I've got bills, and this free podcast is going
I
to
owe
help.
debts to some bad people, man. So I need that NordVPN sponsorship ASAP. No, obviously, we're fascinated by policy. I think it frustrates us both. I think we can talk for you a little bit as well, Jack. But it frustrates us both the lack of policy discourse in the current political debate. And we saw it. We've just come out of the 2024 general election. We're about to approach the US presidential election. And it's ridiculously frustrating how much emphasis is put on personality and bullshit that just doesn't matter, and how little emphasis is put on the actual policies that these people stand for and where they sit politically. And I think there's been a real movement in the social media age to not say what you believe and rather disguise the way in which you're saying things, which just comes across as fake and false. And I think you can be able to say a lot of things about us, but we'll be able to tell you exactly why we think different things on different policies, and we're really trying to encourage a political debate that stems around policy rather than Michelle Obama's hairstyle or whatever the fuck they're talking about that week.
Couldn't agree more, Charlie. Some of these topics are simply too complex to fit neatly into a catchy soundbite, and I think that's where politics can't quite convey how interesting a lot of these topics are. We've just covered pensions, and that became so interesting, and there's just no way that it could ever be talked about in the correct manner.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if you saw the House of Commons debate, the Prime Minister's questions, but the simplicity of the arguments presented in there was embarrassing. And it is one of two options. It's either that they're just trying to present these things in an overly simplistic way to get political credibility, or they don't understand them. And I think they're both equally as damaging. As you know, there's a group of people that I tend to agree with, but I get really annoyed at them because they're right, but for the wrong reasons. They don't really think about it. And I really don't mind what you think. I just really appreciate when people give us our reasoning and a proper actual analysis of where they sit politically, which we don't get in the current.
So you're sat there listening to them, agreeing with them, but gritting your teeth and like clenching. Oh no! No, you're saying it wrong.
You've known me quite a while, Jack. I think one of my main flaws is that I don't sit still and grit my teeth. I think I'd probably be better off for doing that.
So what would your key KPIs be? I don't want to take you back to your corporate...
I just had flashbacks.
PTSD. Sorry, the PTSD, yeah, sorry.
KPIs.
But when would you know that it's been a successful podcast for you, anyway?
For me, I want to see significant improvement in my ability to communicate complex ideas. I want to have produced an episode on all of the issues we think are most important. And I want a bathroom I can play baseball in with a king-size tub big enough for 10 plus me, you know what I mean? So that's my goal.
I recognise that from somewhere.
I don't know.
I hope we don't have to pay royalties.
I don't think Nickelback are coming after us, Jack. I think we're all right.
I think you're probably right too.
What about you? What are your like main goals?
My primary one, other than what you've just said, it's great to research these topics, things that we wouldn't have been motivated to research otherwise. Also, to disseminate in a quite technical information very concisely and very clearly. It's a useful learning tool for us. But I think the main thing for me is just to say some original things, or something at least interesting that one of our listeners will go away from, even if it's not right, even if it's complete horseshit, that they listen to it and they think slightly different because of something we've said and a debate that we've had that they just haven't seen elsewhere. So if we do start mimicking and parroting old normal arguments with no actual, I don't know, just
originality.
Yeah, that would cut deep.
Well, it might just be 5 people, mightn't it? But as long as those 5 people gain something from it, then that's really all that matters. And to be honest, you know, as long as we get something out of it and we can improve our communication skills and be able to think about these things a little bit more in depth, then that's a win. And in the grand scheme of things, if it all worked out really, really well and we could have some positive impact on the political discourse, that would be really positive too.
Let's be optimistic, yeah?
We shall see how it goes. It is what it is, as the kids say.
Indeed. Right, hopefully we'll see you in the next episodes.
Toodaloo.